spoken about in the news, it was great to hear them say that this is not an auto summit, this is a mobility summit. And of course, the punchline, the motto, the slogan, the one sentence that encapsulates the spirit of the book Move is mobility is destiny. And so I think there's no better audience, no better time for us to be talking about this topic. But where are we moving to? The stage is circular. The theme is the circular economy, circular society. I would argue a circular civilization, and that would be civilization 3.0. So let me talk to you briefly today about how we get there. Now, we have built a world of extraordinary connectivity, a density of infrastructure that envelops the entire world. Transportation networks, energy networks, communications networks, all bound together, all overlapping, 50 times longer than all of the borders in the world that divide us. Of course, the irony is right now, we are not using much of it. And that is, of course, because of this pandemic lockdown. It is the most coordinated single act in the history of the human species, where we simply shut down economic activity, cross-border movement and mobility. And the question that I have set out to answer is, what comes next? And where will people go? How will we live? To answer that question, however, we have to step back and think about geography. Now, there are 4 kinds of geography, not just one. This is our natural geography. And this we have taken for granted. We have treated it like it is unchanging. But of course, it is not. It is becoming more and more volatile. The second layer of geography is our political geography, our borders, our boundaries that divide us. There are 200 countries in the world, but this map also is always changing. This year is the 30th anniversary of the collapse of the Soviet Union. We have new countries that are born. We have states that collapse. We see it in the news, especially this week, but quite frankly, more than people realize. So also this map, the one that hangs in all of our offices and walls, we should not take for granted. This too can change. The third map is the one I showed you before. That is called functional geography, infrastructure, connectivity, supply chains, right? All of those infrastructures that connect us to each other and that allow our economy to function and allow for mobility as well. And the fourth layer of geography, perhaps the most important, and certainly the market that you are seeking to address, is our human geography. Where are the people? How many are they? What is the demographic composition of societies, indeed of the whole human species? Here too, we have assumed for a long time that the world population would continue to rise at a very steep rate. Some even spoke of a Malthusian crisis of overconsumption of resources and scarcity of food. In fact, however, the world population is actually beginning to plateau, to level off. Some speak of a baby bust in this year because of the pandemic, and even 10 years ago because of the financial crisis. So all of a sudden, actually, the number of people in the world and the location of people in the world is not necessarily as certain as what used to be. And what is the factor that is complicating all of our considerations? It goes back to natural geography. And that is, of course, climate change. We have to plan for significant transitions ahead. What you just witnessed was an animation. It showed you where the world's people are today versus where we might need to go if climate change accelerates. Again, we need to know where we are going and how we will live when we get there. And this is a geographical question. We often speak about these issues without reference to geography, but geography is back. Now, what you are seeing here is a map that was produced by NASA. It shows you the suitability change. In other words, will a place become more or less livable over time as temperatures rise? Red does not mean that it is impossible to live there, but it does mean it is becoming more and more and more difficult because of rising temperatures, drought, falling water table, many other factors. Green or yellow means that it's becoming more livable over time. And this is what is meant by the climate suitability change. Now, what are we going to do about it? Now let's talk about the technique, right? Let's talk about the engineering. Specifically, geoengineering is one example. I do believe that we will, and this will require the participation of the technology companies, of the mobility companies, of the engineering companies, the construction companies, and so forth of the world. I do believe that we will have no choice but to get behind and to support and to implement various kinds of geoengineering initiatives. That could be things like carbon capture sequestration. That's already happening. It could be direct air capture of carbon emissions. It could be stratospheric aerosol injection, right, to reflect more light and to prevent more heat from entering our atmosphere. Or it could be oceanic geoengineering projects as well. We might start to do all of these things. But remember one thing, the climate is a complex adaptive system, a complex system. What that means is that even if you reduce emissions to zero tomorrow, even if we're all driving the wonderful new BMW cars that I've been seeing on TV this week that are incredible, recyclable, zero emissions, and so forth. Even if we did, this is not simply a game of checkers. In a complex system, nothing ever returns to what it was. We do not get to have the climate and the geography of that climate of the year 1800, of the year 1900, of the year 2000, ever again. It is over. Something will come next, and we have to anticipate what that is because it will be different. But one thing is for sure, we have to adapt to it. It will not adapt to us. And this is why I think we have to invest much more of our resources into adaptation, not only mitigation. Geoengineering is an example of mitigation. Investing more in renewable energy, that is mitigation. Decarbonization, that is mitigation. And we should do all of that. We should have a Manhattan Project for all of these, and that is what the COP26 summit and mission is about. But adaptation is very much about the new infrastructures, the new technologies, the new lifestyles, the new business models, and indeed promoting our more circular habitats. How will we adapt to a very complex, fast-changing, unpredictable environment? And these are some of the things that I think we need to think about. And we not only need to think about how we build and what kinds of things we build and the business models and the social models, but also where we build, because people will move. We are a nomadic species. Human beings have been nomadic for 100,000 years. We have been sedentary, those of us who are lucky enough to be sedentary, those of us who live in modern cities, in developed countries, for the last several thousand years. But for the majority of our history, we have been nomadic. And what if that happens again? Because fundamentally, people are in search of the right latitude, the right altitude, and the right attitude. Right? The right conditions, social conditions. People move because of politics, they move because of economic motivations, because of climate change, many, many, many other factors. And we're looking for stability, political stability, economic stability, and ecological stability. But where we cannot find it, we can potentially build it. And that is the mission of anyone who supports the idea of a mobile and circular civilization. What are the kinds of things that we are going to build, and where are we going to build them? So let me talk a bit more about the geography and the technology. First, I have gone around the world and I've looked at the places that will gain people and lose people, billions of people, as we move and recirculate in the years ahead. This is just a sketch, in a way, of some of the places that are not very populated today that might become much more populated in the future. Take, for example, the Great Lakes region of the United States and Canada. That region right now is losing the most people. And of course, Detroit is America's former automotive capital, or formerly the world's automotive capital. But today it is still losing people. But geographically speaking, it is what I call a climate oasis, a livable place from a climatological standpoint. Much of Russia, specifically, particularly Western Russia, would fit into that category. Much of Scandinavia, even parts of peninsular upland Southeast Asia, parts of Central Asia, such as Kazakhstan, maybe the Caucasus. These are mostly underpopulated areas today where populations are sure to grow. But there's many more, and there's pros and cons to each geography. But what we should focus on is, again, building, because we don't know where people will be, we have to adapt our technologies for a mobile world. That means that cities need to be movable, infrastructure needs to be movable, housing and habitats and settlements need to be movable. We need to be able to have people live in colonies that we build, in which there is solar power, wind power, battery power, in which water is collected or treated and recycled, in which it is channeled into hydroponic and aquaponic food production systems. And all of this potentially needs to be able to move as the conditions shift. And that is the incredible engineering, technological challenge before us if more and more and more people become mobile, become nomadic. Actually, my argument is not just about the movement of people, as you see. It's actually about the mobility of everything. And you are, again, the mobility gathering. So I want to emphasize this point. If you look at the deeper trend, we can see that more and more of our life that used to be rooted can be uprooted. And perhaps this is our survival mechanism because of the uncertainty that we have created in our planetary system. I believe that in the future, and very soon perhaps, our passports will be on apps on our phone, data on the blockchain, your vaccination certificate, your medical records, your travel history, your bank statements, your criminal records, your educational certificates. All of that is already online. If it can be in a secure blockchain, then countries can see when they need to much more efficiently what your individual merits are and whether they want or don't want to let you in. But soon, I hope we will not stand in line at consulates to apply for visas, for example. That is possible. Of course, cryptocurrencies and e-wallets allow for the cross-border, seamless, frictionless movement of digital currency and capital. You carry that wallet here as well. If you think about co-working spaces, now they are not just, you do not just have your favorite one in one city, but then look for a new one in another city. They are forming networks, and your membership allows you to use any of them in any of the cities you go to. The same is becoming true of homes. Companies, real estate companies, are leasing or operating buildings where you also have a membership and can move around and be a digital nomad in various urban places. And of course, car sharing. This too doesn't have to be only within the city. You have your membership for different cities, and you can go and use the vehicles in a multimodal way that are available in each of the places. And then, of course, universal Wi-Fi, digitization of health records, and as I mentioned before, education as well. All of these things allow you to use services based upon your unique digital identity wherever in the world you may be. But I will say this, whether you are in the business of hardware or the business of software, you do have to understand where the people are to know where your market will be. Geography, again, still matters and matters more than ever. And so I have an agenda. The agenda is that we think about a common action plan towards this circular civilization. We have to move people to where resources are abundant and stable, and technologies to people where they need them. We have to think about realigning these layers of geography in a way that is not dependent on whether it is one country or another country, but thinking in terms of not sovereignty, but stewardship over our resources. We will not get many more chances to save our civilization. And we have to use all of the technologies at our disposal to do so. And when we have accomplished that, what will our civilization 3.0 look like? It will definitely be mobile. It needs to be sustainable, and therefore it needs to be a circular civilization. So that is just a quick summary of some of the arguments in the new book, Move. In English, it actually doesn't come out for about 1 month, but auf Deutsch ist es schon erschienen, vor 6 Monaten sogar. So this is Move, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you more about it, Steffi. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Parag. This was amazing and very inspirational. It fits perfect to our topic today. And Parag, let me say you're a fascinating speaker, and I can't wait to see you in Munich in September, then in 2 weeks, for your lecture at the Literaturhaus. I think it's the Literaturhaus. Thank you so much. I really recommend the book very much. We have to get into it. Oh. Sorry, I have to. So here, can you see me, Parag? And can you hear me?
Not yet.
Good. So
I hear you.
I'm happy that you have been here, and I'm looking forward to our next conversation. Thank you, Parag. Parag Khanna.